What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I got something I want to discuss, and we got some news on this. Check this out, y'all. Trump says Intel will give 10% stake to U.S., becoming third largest shareholder. Now, there's a lot of people freaking out about this, but I think it's a good move. I think it's a massive move. I think this might actually go towards the Trump accounts, right? It might, some of the equity stake that we have in this, be able to make a little bit of money maybe. It might go toward paying for those Trump accounts, for crying out loud, which is, I think it's a phenomenal idea. It's just absolutely fantastic that Donald Trump came up with this idea. If you don't know what it is, basically, anytime there's a new child born, they take $1,000. I believe that's the initial investment, and they put in basically into the stock market, and that child gets to access that once they become an adult, right? And it gets to sit there and build interest and build equity, build some money out. You can also add to that. You can pay into those Trump accounts and make the investment much larger, which I think is a great idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. I don't know why they haven't come up with that a long time ago. I know it kind of goes into socialism a little bit. It's another government handout, but I think it's a good idea. It's an initial investment. It will incentivize fiscal responsibility in these kids because they've got this investment. They could take money, add to it, whatever you can't take out of it until you're a certain age. I think it's 18. Pretty sure that's what it was. I covered the news article a while back, but I forget all the details right off the top of my head. But I think it's a great idea, and I think this might go toward helping to pay for that, maybe. But, there's all other kind of benefits that we'll get into. But let's get into this news article right quick. From the top line, President Donald Trump on Friday said Intel agreed to give the U.S. a 10% stake in the company, making the U.S. the beleaguered chip maker's third largest shareholder and one of the largest government interventions in American company in more than a decade. The key facts is Trump said the agreement, representing a 10% stake worth roughly $10 billion, I think they meant to say worth roughly $10 billion, resulted from his meeting with Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan last week. Telling reporters Friday, I said, I think it would be good having the United States as your partner. The deal will likely require approval from Intel's board of directors. A 10% stake would represent the third largest institutional holding in Intel, behind 13% stakes held by BlackRock and Vanguard. An agreement expected to be formally announced later Friday would boost Intel, which has been left behind its competitors in the chip-making industry, Trump said. Shares of Intel rose more than 6% to just below $24 after Trump announced the agreement. That is right. So what Trump is trying to do, this has a lot to do with national security right here, because China is advancing fast. We want to stay on top of the chip-making industry, and this is a good way to do it. This is putting a lot of money into our own economy, into our own chip making, because currently we rely heavily on Taiwan. Well, with China threatening to take over Taiwan, that makes everything destabilized in a sense, because we never know if China is going to invade and try to take over Taiwan, cutting us off from making chips. So Donald Trump, as a matter of fact, Joe Biden was on this as well. He just didn't do nearly as much work as what Trump is doing on this, trying to get manufacturing back here. We need the machines. They're using our own technology that was invented in the United States to make these chips. So I think we should have that manufacturing brought right back to the United States. And I think that's one of the things that we should exclusively manufacture, to be honest with you. Because if we want to stay on top, we've got to do something to stay there. We can't just get to the top and be like, yeah, let's take a break and we'll just chill out. No, it doesn't work like that, folks. We must stay on the cutting edge, right there at the bleeding edge of technology to be able to stay on top. Right, so we're going to have to keep pushing and keep moving in that direction. And I think this is a good way to go. It does a lot of things. We'll get into that, though. Earlier this month, Trump called Tan highly conflicted and said he should resign immediately after Senator Tom Cotton questioned Intel's board over his alleged ties to China firms. Cotton asked whether Tan divested from Chinese companies linked to the Chinese military or Communist Party, and whether Intel's board was aware of a criminal case involving Cadence Design, where Tan served as CEO before being hired at Intel in March. Tan disputed the claims in a memo to Intel employees, writing there was a lot of misinformation circulating about my past roles and arguing he has always operated within the highest legal and ethical standards. Of course, that's just a general statement right there. They all talk like that, and I think it's all fake to AstroTurf to garbage if you ask me, but it is what it is. Trump's opinion on Tan changed after a meeting in the White House last week when Trump lauded Tan as an amazing story. Yay. A 10% stake would rank the U.S. just above SoftBank, which announced earlier this week it would invest $2 billion in Intel as part of both firms investing in advanced technology and semiconductor innovation in the U.S. The investment represents a roughly 2% stake, ranking SoftBank the fifth largest shareholder of Intel. An investment by the U.S. in Intel development over the last week, as Trump administration officials reportedly discussed converting grants under the CHIPS Act into an equity stake, which is a freaking awesome idea, I think. Such a partial ownership in U.S.-based company is historically rare, though the federal government previously injected billions of funds into Chrysler and General Motors to help restore the auto industry after the 2008 financial crisis. In the early 20th century, the U.S. provided financial support through the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which was created by President Franklin Roosevelt to stabilize struggling banks, railroads, and other firms during the Great Depression. The Treasury Department also provided loans through the COVID-19 pandemic, during which the U.S. took up rights to buy stock in airlines like Delta, United, and Southwest. That's all very, very fascinating, if you ask me. Now, I really like this idea because this essentially would position U.S. taxpayers to benefit from Intel's success, right? But they must succeed for this to actually work, which I think is a good idea. And the way the future is going, everything is going tech. Everything needs to increase in efficiency. So money needs to be invested into these companies so they can research and, build that technology out or whatever. So as long as Intel stays successful, we're going to benefit from this. This is great. This is all really good. Not only that, this is going to create more jobs. There's already been a couple of $1 billion of investment into manufacturing for more chips. So bringing that back, I think those are good jobs for American citizens. Only American citizens. Let's try to keep the criminal aliens out of this sector, for crying out loud. This will be really good paying jobs, build out the middle class. Once again, a lot of people like to bash Donald Trump and his economic policies as wild and the economic sky is going to fall. He's going to implode the economy. I think our economy is, at this point, it's almost too big to fail, if you will. Now, if we keep going in the direction that we're going with government spending, I think the government can go bankrupt easily, folks. They absolutely can. Because we can't just keep raising our debt limit, for crying out loud. And this gives us opportunity to expand our economy, because I think that we're running into a problem with economic expansion, which there's not going to be enough people here, right? We have a replacement crisis in this country, and we just can't make up that growth with the amount of people that we have, with the amount of population growth, in other words. Now, immigration won't solve this, right? A lot of people make that argument, well, this is why Democrats are bringing in millions of criminal aliens. No, folks, no. When you hear somebody say that, they're just lying. That's all that is. That is a lie, because bringing in cheap labor, it's not going to fix high labor problems. Right? None of that's going to work. These people need to be highly educated to get these manufacturing jobs. You can't just throw a bunch of criminal aliens into a chip-making factory and expect everything to roll over hunky-dory. Right? That's just not going to work. Right? It's a stupid idea, and I can't believe people actually present that as, hey, this is the reason why the Biden administration was bringing in, we're in a replacement crisis. Well, let's just import people. No, the culture clash doesn't work. It's cheap labor. These people are uneducated for the most part, and it just doesn't work, folks. So don't let these people lie to you about these things. It's all nonsense. But this, right, we need more investment into areas like this, tech, things that we do well. We need to expand upon those things, right? Like auto manufacturing, we do that pretty good. AI is coming in, is taking some jobs away. but it's also creating a lot more jobs at the same time. So there's kind of a balance right there. And it's good paying jobs for the most part. So it is what it is. The truck driving sector, chips go into everything. So we could talk about just about everything, right? They're talking about taking and automating truck driving, for crying out loud. I think that's a bad idea currently. I don't think the technology is up to snuff on that. But, I mean, we could get into all kind of different things. But I think, just the strategic value that this poses right here, just to keep us at the top of the top, the best of the best, when it comes to the bleeding edge of what is pretty much running the world right now, which is whoever can make the best amount of chips is going to have the best technology and have the best economy, essentially. So I think Donald Trump focusing in on the tech sector, if you will. But we also need, once again, we need programmers, people writing code and all that other stuff. Those are good paying jobs. But then we don't have enough people going into those sectors right now. So that needs to be built out too. But I think the focus on these chips and the potential financial returns we could see for this make this a pretty good deal. Because once again, future sight, if we had it, that would be great. Looking at the future, it appears the future is whoever has the best chips is going to have the best economy, is going to have the best technology, is going to have the best of everything. So I think the focus on this, it's a good idea. The financial returns, everything, your job creation, all of this, it's going to have a compounding effect, if you will, on our economy. I think it's all good, y'all, but am I off the mark on this? Y'all let me know down in the comment section. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me if you don't mind. I'd greatly appreciate that if you could do that. Subscribe if you're new around here and you want to stay up to date with news and politics and how you're being manipulated by corporate press news articles, because you are definitely being manipulated. Y'all share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell the homeless guy down the road. Tell everybody, by the way. Click that join button. Sign up and become a member. That's the best way to help this channel grow and expand. But y'all do all that for me. And y'all remember that God is always with us. And He loves each and every one of you out there. But y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.